I'll be honest. I don't know if the San Antonio Spurs should keep Doug McDermott. I don't really see a usage in doing so.
I want some rest. Are we having fun yet?
All right, so I definitely want to talk about this. I came across this on Twitter, and I found it interesting. You guys know I absolutely love analytics. Okay, not all the time, but most of the time. You know, especially when it's something that's pertaining to us. That I think is pretty apparent. I think it's important nonetheless. Now, before we talk about this really quickly, clanthemerchfan.com if you guys want to support. I'm actually quite shocked. I wasn't expecting this one to do as well. But quite a few of you guys have already got on it, so I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the love. It means the world to me, real talk. So anyways, if you guys want to support, it's there, clanthemerchfan.com. Also got stickers here, but yeah, look, go support if you want to support. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this. So this is something that I came across, and I can just read it for you. So it says, typically 3-point shooting and off-ball gravity are correlated, but some guys have monster gravity despite being average shooters, and some great shooters have minimized gravity because they are stationary. So as we can see here, they says the farther you go up, you're more of a sniper. The farther you go down, you're bricking, essentially. The farther you go left, D ignores you, so defense doesn't really like care. And then the farther you go right is bending defenses. So that's where that gravity comes in. So as we can see here, okay, and it says off-ball gravity, but as we can see here, Steph Curry is, look, every single time someone says he's the greatest 3-point shooter of all time, you don't have to just look at stats. Every single analytic has him at the top. He is phenomenal, okay? So as you can see here, his gravity is stupid high. His 3-point shooting talent is out the roof. And you expect the same thing from guys like this. As you can see, Luka Doncic is pretty high in shooting talent. Kind of average-ish when it comes to gravity. Trae Young, same thing, super high 3-point shooting talent, but the king is up here. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring up Doug McDermott, because I'm sure you don't see him, okay? But if you scroll in, actually, hold on, I got to bring this up in another tab. Yeah, so if you scroll in here and we scroll down, you can see Doug McDermott is right here, literally in the middle of the pack. Now, I will say that his gravity, you know, is not that bad. That's pretty good. But his 3-point shooting is like pretty meh. I mean, we literally have him right there with Carmelo Anthony as far as 3-point shooting talent this previous season. Now, here's the thing. This is why I question quite a bit. And you can see Jokic's gravity is really high. But also, I don't know. I'm actually not sure how many threes Jokic throws up, but he can shoot. And as you can see here, Giannis, obviously, his 3-point shooting being pretty low. But that's besides the point. We're talking about Doug McDermott. He is a 3-point shooter. But the fact that he's right there with Carmelo Anthony, it just makes me question quite a bit, okay? Now, obviously, some of these guys on this list, there's way more to their game than just 3-point shooting. You got Joel Embiid here, so I'm not just going to hinder them and say, oh, you know, he's not that good in this category, therefore he's trash. But when it comes to Doug McDermott, I've seen these games. Like, I watched these games. That's his job. Like, that's it. Pop literally has him come in, throw up some threes, and go back on the bench. It is not a very complicated game, or at least how we're using Doug McDermott right now. So I kind of question whether or not it's even worth it. So we already know that the Spurs have this tendency, and I'm not going to say that this is like necessarily bad because we have so much cap space, so I understand, but they do have a tendency to pay vets a little too much. Now, Doug McDermott, obviously coming to us, he was basically at the top of his game when it came to his career. So I understood the Spurs go ahead and giving him a bag, but right now I can't really think of a really great reason to keep Doug McDermott. Like, I think, well, will he make other players better? Will he make it a little bit easier for guys to be able to develop? And I'm not 100% sure. It just seems like he's right there, middle of the pack. And I don't know if it'll necessarily help the building blocks that we need for guys like Josh Primo and Malachi. You know, I just don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. And like I said, if it was way more to his game, don't get me wrong, he has a pretty high IQ. You know, as far as passing ability, making cuts and things like that. But he's not a very complex player, right? He is a role-playing three-point shooter. That's what he does. And I guess you can try to make an argument for, well, maybe his leadership on and off the court is something that's good for the guy. But I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think the Spurs, because we already know that the Spurs are looking to try to trade Jakob, right? We already know that they're looking to trade Josh Richardson. There's been some rumors that they've looked for some things for Doug McDermott. But I'm afraid that his contract is going to be really hard to get teams to bite on. Now, it's possible because Brian Wright has been like a god, right? So it is possible. But as it stands right now, I'll just be honest with you guys in saying this is our main three-point shooter, and he's kind of in middle of the pack. Gravity pretty decent, I'm not gonna lie, but I don't know, man. Your main goal is three-point shooting, and you're below a lot of guys right now. Like below a lot of guys. I mean, to the point even Brent Forbes, and people dog on Brent Forbes. Brent Forbes has more gravity and better three-point shooting talent this past season, at least. So I have no idea. Me personally, I would just go ahead and trade Doug McDermott. It's nothing against him. I think he's a fine player. I think if he goes to a better team, especially a championship team, they could definitely use his services. But as it stands for the Spurs, I just don't know what he's really adding at this point. I don't know. We're kind of banking on the future. We're totally investing in the future, and I think that he could be another piece in order to do that. But looking at these analytics or things that I've seen on Doug McDermott this past season, it's strange. And what's even stranger is that, I've said this before, okay? I've said this before. So it's one. Whoa, what was that? I don't know what that was, but I've said this before. But this previous season, I was very shocked by the amount of minutes that Doug McDermott was getting per game. Actually, hold on. I know that this is unprofessional. Hold on. Doug McDermott stats. Because I remember saying, oh, dude, he barely plays. And someone in the chat told me, no, dude, he plays all the time. He gets plenty of minutes. And when I saw it, I was just taken aback. So as we can see here, points per game, 11 points per game. Not bad. But he averaged 24 minutes. And it's funny because it's one of those things where I don't want to go fully off of intuition or my eye test. But this entire season, I'll be honest, this entire season I've seen him play, I could have sworn he was averaging like 10 minutes per game. And you know why? It's not a ton of three-point shooting, like great three-point shooting this past season. And it's not a ton of gravity. He's right there in the middle of the pack. So it made me feel as if, and I was right in feeling this, that he's just not that effective. And I know and then here's the thing too, okay? I know that it's not about winning games in this upcoming season. So in that regard, I really don't think it makes a difference either which way. So I just don't really care for him being on the team at this point. I think if you can move him and get something really good and allow that space to be open for Jeremy Sohan, just let him get the minutes. I was about to say Keldon Johnson, but Keldon Johnson, more than likely, he'll still be able to be moved to his small forward position. I just don't think it's worth it. I really want to know what you guys think. McDermott, I like him, but as it stands, I just don't really see a point. He's mediocre, when it comes to, his three-point shooting, at least this past season. He's not necessarily going to make the young guys better on the court to open things up for Keldon and Devin Vassell so they can explore their games a little bit more. I just don't see it. He's not that effective, and I don't know. I don't know if it's really worth keeping him right now. But anyways, I'll give it to you guys later. If you want to support the channel, as I always say, clanthemerchfan.com, link in the description, or become a Patreon YouTube member, only $2 per month. Yeah, I really want to know what you guys think. I don't think it's worth it, but deuces, man.